After the failure of the November 1830 uprising, thousands of Poles left the country to live a life in exile. They represented the cultural elite, the artistic elite, the literary elite. What was the effect on Poland, on ideas, on culture, of having the major cultural and political influences be forged outside the lands of Poland? In this episode of Poland Daily History, we look at these issues in greater detail and assess the effect of this great emigration. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. Today I'm in the studio with Dominik Szczęsny-Kostonecki, a historian and a PhD scholar, and we're going to discuss the Great Emigration. Dominik, thank you for joining us. But what was the French government look like at that time? Because obviously having this sort of revolutionary activity, or semi-revolutionary activity probably is in your midst. Of course, was there a concern that this might spread unwelcome ideas to the intelligentsia of France, with whom I assume they had some sort of regular contact?
Oh, and that's a good moment to produce yet another name that is extremely important. That is Adam Mickiewicz. So perhaps the most talented Polish poet of all time. In 1840, he was offered a chair at Collège de France to give a series of lectures on Slavic literatures. That was the idea. But it soon turned out that instead of talking about, no, of course, it wasn't that he didn't say anything about that. That what he said during those lectures was completely irrelevant. But mostly he was talking about Napoleon and the Napoleonic period and worshipping Napoleon in some sense. And when the French government learned about that, they thought that it's maybe too risky, because that was a time before Napoleon III. Of course, during under that regime, the Second Empire, that would be welcomed, but not, when Louis Philippe was the king. I mean, he wanted to embrace, let's say, the Bonapartists, but not too much. Let's not be too hasty, and they closed down this cathedral that was given to Adam Mickiewicz. So that's an example of how the French government was sort of
So Louis Philippe was not as keen as having these.
No.
And I think I'm right in saying that Mickiewicz, he started some newspaper which ran only for a very short time.
Tribuna Ludu.
Yes, exactly.
The People's Tribune, yeah.
Tribune des Peuples, I think, in French. I think
Tribune des Peuples.
It only lasted, I think, for about 8 or 9 months. I mean, I read
too revolutionary.
Yes, he managed to publish about 70 articles, which are probably of a flavour too revolutionary, even for France, I suspect.
It's interesting because in the communist period in Poland, so in the second half of the 20th century, the name Tribuna Ludu was restored. That was one of the most important, magazines of the communist Poland.
Interesting.
Also, Słowacki was quite revolutionary in his ideas. I mean, he combines revolutionary ideas.
And Słowacki, it's probably worth pointing out, had actually taken a minor part in the November 1830 rebellion himself. Słowacki had, some of these chaps had actually directly taken part in the November 1830. He'd gone to Dresden, hadn't he, and been very well received, although it was not clear whether he'd actually gone on his own account or.
The problem is with all the three great poets, that is to say, once again, Mickiewicz, Słowacki, and Krasiński, that they didn't take part in the November Uprising. Some say that Mickiewicz wanted to, but he couldn't. Nonetheless, it remains truth that they didn't take part, and for them it was a problem in the future. they were feeling somewhat guilty of not doing that. I mean, Krasiński was trying to persuade that his father locked him up. I mean, come on.
Rather unlikely. Yes.
Yeah.
Locked up to keep him safe from revolutionary tendencies, yes, of the rebellion. But and of course there was some tension, I think, between, as we talk about it, between Mickiewicz and Słowacki. That Słowacki, I think, felt that Mickiewicz had taken some of his literary ideas and sort
between Mickiewicz and Słowacki, and between Słowacki and Krasiński. So that's you've got a triangle. Of course, Mickiewicz was the oldest, and in a sense, I sometimes have this impression that he looked at Słowacki, who was like 12 years younger, a kid brother, something like that. So he didn't take him seriously. I mean, there are differences between them. I mean, in their program, in what they write. Mickiewicz is perhaps the most intelligent of all of them, and perhaps he is the greatest literary specialist on Russia and the Russian politics, Russian political culture. I've got one of them here on this bit of paper. I've got one of Mickiewicz's greatest poems, which is called Reduta Ordona, Ordon's Redoubt in English. This translation I find on the internet is not a perfect one, but still, I mean, you can understand the idea, the bottom line here. This poem was written by Mickiewicz in 1831-32, so let's say before arriving at Paris, but I mean, doesn't matter really. And it's a very important poem in which Mickiewicz talks about the final struggle for Warsaw during the November Uprising.
Right.
Which, as we know, took place in September 1839. And this Ordon, Juliusz Konstanty Ordon, was responsible for protecting one of the ramparts here in Warsaw. It's a very important poem. It can be, if we have a British audience, I mean, it can be compared to Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade.
A great poem.
Despite this one is more intellectually powerful, I'd say. So listen to this.
Yes.
Talking about the Russian political culture. So we see the troops, the Russian troops coming at Warsaw. And now Mickiewicz says, where is the king who sends those crowds to be slaughtered? Is he sharing their courage? Is he putting his own life on the line? No, he sits 500 miles away on his capital. Great king, the only ruler of half of the world. O mighty one, strong as God, malignant as Satan, when your bronze scares the Turks, when the Paris legation licks your feet. Literally, that's what he says. Only Warsaw is not afraid of your power. Raises its hand on you and pulls the crown of Kazimierz, Chrobry's, Polish kings, off your head. For thou have stolen and covered it in blood. Tsar angers, his courtiers die of fear. But there rain down armies for which God and faith is Tsar. Tsar is angry, will die, will exhilarate Tsar.
Powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff. I mean, even the translation is not too. I mean, I had to correct it a bit.
I think the Italians did that poem. Did the Tsar get to hear about that poem? What did he have to say anything about it, or did he?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I would love to see his his reaction if it took place. No, I don't. I have no idea really. I mean, I'm not saying that we cannot find information on that. I simply don't know. But that would be.
It would be interesting to know how he reacted, if at all, of course.